Good morning, students. How are you today? I hope that you're happy with your family. Are you ready for today's discussion? Then, if you're ready, let's start. This is Teacher Rena, and I will be your teacher for this subject. Science, Grade 4, Unit 1, Photosynthesis and Reproduction. Vocabulary. Now, I want you to please read. Repeat after teacher. Please follow as I read. Mathematics. Number 1. Expanded notation. Expanded notation. Expanded notation. Number 2. Greater. 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 Number 3. Hundreds. 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 Science. Number 1. Involve. 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 Number 2. Carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide. Number 3. Photosynthesis. 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 Social studies. Number 1. Vow. 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 Number 2. Preach. 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 Number 3. Overcome. 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 Health education. Number 1. Emotion. 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 Number 2. Intellectual. 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 Number 3. Physical. 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 English. Number 1. Banana. 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 Number 2. Bed. 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 And number 3. Bicycle. 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 Time for dictation. Now I want you to please get your science notebook and get also your pencil. You're going to write 3 dictation words. Let's start. In your paper, please write the day today. Please write the day today and write in ordinal form. Write the date in ordinal form. Then write June, Jun dot 2021 NO.3. Then numbers your paper from 1, 2, and 3. Are you finished? Let's start. Number 1. Involve. Involve. How do you spell involve? I N V O L V E. Again, it's I N V O L V E. Involve. Now let's have number 2. Number 2 is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide. Now let's spell first carbon. Ready? C A R B O N. Again, carbon. C A R B O N. Now for dioxide. D I O X I D E. Again, it's D I O X I D E. Carbon dioxide. Number 3. Please spell the word photosynthesis. Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis spelled Photosynthesis. Again, it's Photosynthesis. Are you finished? That's good. Let's start checking the words. Number 1, we have involve. 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 Number 2, carbon dioxide. CARBONDIOXIDE. Carbon dioxide. Number 3, PHOTOSYNTHESIS. Photosynthesis. Great job, students. Now let's proceed to our topic. We will talk about photosynthesis. Everybody say photosynthesis. One more time. Photosynthesis. Now, photosynthesis takes place inside the leaves. Remember that. Photosynthesis takes place inside the leaves. So, in all the parts that we have in the plants, remember that photosynthesis takes place inside the leaves. So have you ever wondered what inside the leaves? But before you wonder that thing, let's proceed with the leaves. So I am pointing in this side for the sunlight. And in photosynthesis, it produces oxygen plus water. Next, carbon dioxide and water. So remember that the water flows and runs through the stems of the plants. So the sunlight, the light energy that goes to the leaves, and then the carbon dioxide is equal to oxygen. It produces oxygen. So if you are wondering what's inside the leaves, and if you will just take a look in the leaves, it is just so simple. It's just a plain leaves. But take a look at this. This is how it looks inside a leaf. So there are holes. So that's why there's photosynthesis that are happening because there are specific parts inside the leaves. It's not just the plain leaves, but it has parts, it has holes, and remember that there's stomata. Remember that. Now let's talk about the concept of photosynthesis. So photo means light. Remember that photo means light. Then synthesis means putting things together. Synthesis means putting things together. So therefore, photosynthesis means the way plants use light to help put things together, usually to make a new thing. So in order to make a new thing, what is the number one that photosynthesis needs? Yes, the light. The number one that the leaves need in photosynthesis is the light or the sun. Now let's look at this. A plant. So the light energy from the sun goes into the absorbed by the leaves and also the carbon dioxide. And look at the arrow. The arrow, the light energy is going to, yes, inside the leaves. And also look at the arrow of the carbon dioxide. It's going inside the leaves. So it means to say that the light energy, the light, and then the carbon dioxide, it is the process that takes place inside the leaves. And after the process, it produces oxygen. So look at the arrow. The arrow is pointing outside. It's not inside. So it means to say that oxygen is the product. When light energy and carbon dioxide is combined, it is what the leaf produces. And then look at the roots. So in the roots, the roots absorbs the water, oxygen, and food. And on the other side, there's carbon dioxide, sunlight, and water. So remember that photosynthesis is putting things together, and then when it puts things together, it produces sugar that needs in a plant. So to make food, plants make use of chlorophyll in the leaves to absorb light energy. So in order for a leaf to absorb light energy, they need what? Yes, you're right. They need chlorophyll to make food. Without chlorophyll, they cannot absorb light. So chlorophyll is important in photosynthesis. Next, light helps plants to combine carbon dioxide with water to produce sugar and oxygen. So the light is very important. The sunlight is very important because it helps plants to combine carbon dioxide with water. Without the light, the leaves that is where the photosynthesis takes place, it can't be undone without the light. So the light is the number one need in photosynthesis so that the leaves will produce sugar and oxygen. Remember that the leaves produces sugar and oxygen, and that's possible only because of the light that helps to combine to put things together. So take a look with this equation. Water plus carbon dioxide, light. Next, sugar plus oxygen plus water. Then chlorophyll. So it means to say that during photosynthesis, carbon dioxide enters the plant. Remember that the arrows of the carbon dioxide is entering into the plant through the stomata of the leaves. And at the same time, the plants release oxygen and excess water through the stomata, giving us fresh air. So when the carbon dioxide enters through the stomata, the leaves releases oxygen. Again, what leaf releases? Yes, the leaf release oxygen. Remember that one. The leaf release oxygen after the photosynthesis. The leaf release oxygen and not just oxygen but excess water, and that excess water giving us fresh air. That's why we feel fresh when there's plant or a tree because of the photosynthesis that are happening inside the leaves. So let's proceed with our topic: reproduction, pollination, and fertilization. So this is a picture of the parts of a flower. And let's start reading. In our left side, we have anther and filament. And this is what we call stamen. Stamen is the male parts of a flower. Next, we have petal. Next, staple. Staple covers the ovary part of a plant. Next, in our right side, we have stigma, style, and ovary. And this is what we call pistil. And pistil is the female part of a flower. Now, we have two main structures of plant. We have two main structures of plant, which is male and female. And without these two main structures, fertilization is not possible. It needs two structures, male and female. Now let's start talking about male. So male parts, we have stamens. We call this, in flower, we have called this stamens. And it includes only two, anther and filament. Filament is the one who holds the anther. Now next, female parts. And this is what we call pistil. It includes three parts, which named stigma, style, and ovary. Stigma, style, and ovary. So this is the part of the female. Inside and outside is the male parts. So pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the male structure of a plant to the female structure of a plant. So remember that pollination, from the word pollination, so it is the transfer of the pollen grains. So where can you find the pollen grains? Pollen grains is inside the flower. It's inside the flower in the pollen grains. And the pollen grains is transfer from, remember this one, transfer from male to female. So it starts with the male, then going to the female, because in the female, there where fertilization happens. Now let's tackle the two pollination, type of the two pollination. First one is self-pollination. Self-pollination happens when the pollen that lands on the stigma is from the same plant. So self-pollination means the plants does not need another plant so that it can fertilize and it can multiply. It doesn't need another plant. It only needs itself. So it's called self-pollination, while the other one is cross-pollination. Cross-pollination happens when the pollen that lands on the stigma is from a different plant. So from the word cross-pollination means it needs another plant so that it can cross-pollinate. Again, self-pollination is the same plant, while the cross-pollination is from a different plant. Next, now let's talk about fertilization. Fertilization is the process where the male's pollen grains fuse together with the female's ovules inside the ovary and become one new cell. So where does the pollen grains, the fertilization happens? Yes, it happens in the ovary, in the female parts of a flower, in the ovary. And then in the ovary, the male pollen grains and then the ovule of the female is fused together. So look at this one. So this is how fertilization, pollination happens. So the first flower is a picture of pollination. And then the bee, the insects are very important in the pollination or in the fertilization, because without the insect, no one and nothing can carry the pollen grains to the other plants. So they cannot cross pollinate. So they need the insect. So look at the bee. The bee is going to the other flower. So it means to say that the bee is making cross pollination. The bee is transferring the pollen grains to the other flower, to the other plant. And then when the pollen grains are transferred to the other plant, it is called fertilization, because the male pollen grains and the female ovules are fused together, and it is fertilization now. So remember, the first one is carrying the pollen grains. This is the male, this is the female. So ovary bears fruit. Ovary bears fruit, while the ovules bears seeds. So when the fertilization happens, first thing that produces the fertilization is the fruit. Yes, and after the fruit, it turns into fruit. Then after the fruit, it turns into seeds. So when we have the seed, we can now multiply. Now let's have review. Which part of the plant photosynthesis takes place? So the part is, yes, the leaves. During photosynthesis, which part of the leaf does carbon dioxide enter? It enters in the stomata. What happens when the male's pollen grains fuse together with the female's ovule inside the ovary? We have talked about this. The answer is fertilization. Last, what are the two main structures of a plant that involves in the process of reproduction? Remember that without these two main structures, fertilization cannot be done. So these are, yes, male and female. Remember that male is stamens and female is pistil. Now for your activity, we have identification. So we have there blanks. Then all you need to do is refer to the words inside the box. Please refer to the words inside the box. Number 1, blank happens when the pollen that lands on the stigma is from the same plant. Number 2, blank happens when the pollen that lands on the stigma is from different plant. Number 3, blank, the transfer of pollen grains from the male structure to the female structure. Number 4, to make food, plants make use of blank in the leaves to absorb light energy. Number 5, light helps plants to combine carbon dioxide with blank to produce sugar and oxygen. And then the answers are, you should choose with the following words: chlorophyll, pollination, self-pollination, cross-pollination. So these are the answers. Just choose exactly what the specific answer for each number. So this would be all for today. Thank you so much for learning, kids. I hope that you have learned something important. Please continue to read your books and keep in mind what you have learned. This is Teacher Rena. Goodbye. See you again next time.